So just a quick little first look here. So we already have it in the garage. I got some snow coming down outside and brought this one in here. Said, yeah, we get some free time. We're supposed to get just a little bit of snow the next couple of days. Let's tear into her. So it's early, but again, you get these cars and take off the headlights, the front rear plastic bumpers. Maybe somebody on Facebook Marketplace needs some cosmetic parts, mirrors, things like that. Even though, as you can see, the rest of the car not necessarily in the best shape. Body outside doesn't look too great, but I tell you, I'm pretty excited about it. A 2006 Hyundai Elantra, a little 16 valve, 4-cylinder in it, and it runs pretty good. A little bit of, the guy said he had found a little bit of water in the engine oil, but I mean, it runs good, picks up well. It's got 200 and I think it's 12,000 miles. But up front, the wheels and everything up front look good. So we're excited for it. Had an Elantra last year and I thought it was tough. Just took a ton of beating. A little bit of bad luck with it, with the shifter cable breaking on me and getting stuck in reverse, but we're excited. So yeah, just a first look here. We'll take a quick look under the hood and start tearing into it. So again, high mileage, but runs pretty good. This pulley here, it's got a little bit of play as it's running, but doesn't seem to be anything of concern. You can see a good amount of space up front. I mean, worst case, it's pressed in. You're pressing into the converter there coming out of the motor. So we're excited. Not really sure what you have. Ultimately, you think you got a good derby car, but we think this one's going to be tough. So start stripping down the cosmetic parts and get into her. So we've got the Hyundai Elantra back in the garage. It is sunny outside and warming up. The school year has ended. So we're diving into this old girl and just got some cosmetic stuff off here just to show real quick. You can see our trailer that we built, my son and I. We're in the finishing touches of it. Got to build fenders, but we got all of the clutter on it. So just the stuffings, if you will, from the inside of the trunk. Same thing, you can see the rust inside the door. Is very bizarre. Where the small window was, that's where a lot of rust was on both the rear doors. But got the door panels off again, lower the windows down to where you can get at the bolts that hold the windows on. Got them piled over there in the corner with the other things I'd already taken off, the headlights and that, in case anybody wants those. So inside, again, got all the windows out, just got to remove the seats. Pretty simple and straightforward there. So we'll do that here shortly. Same thing up front. Pull this seat out, pull that crappy carpet up, which again, she's rusty in different areas. It's odd. It's rusty in some areas, but not rusty in other areas. And where it is rusty, like inside the driver's door here where the mirror was, kind of almost odd. Just kind of built up there, I guess, from the stuff these vehicles see in this part of the country. I don't know. All right, so we'll show up front here. Here are, right there and right there, there are our tranny lines. You can see that go into the top of the transmission that run down into the radiator. So we're planning on running this stock. At least that's the plan right now. We're going to cut those lines and loop them around for the radiator, or excuse me, for the transmission lines. Radiator we're going to leave alone. We'll pull out this big air box, but that's mostly it up front, I do believe. So we'll see. I think we're going to run her pretty stock. These front bumpers are a little bit older, and I had an Elantra last year that the front one took a pounding before it bent and ultimately ripped off there before the bumper actually completely bent. So I think we're going to run this one stock. So diving back into it, finish a couple cosmetic things as I mentioned. Loop the lines. Muffler again we'll cut off. You can see this one, converter right out of the intake there. We'll cut right at the bottom and go from there. So here we are outside. We got our seat out and everything again on the inside is stripped out. It is glass removal time. There is no good way to do this. Anybody that's done it knows it's miserable. A lot of people use the Sawzall and just kind of cut it out and then do whatever, a screwdriver, whatever, to get the stuff there out. I like to use, I think it's just a paint chipper. That's what I always called it. I've been using it for years, and I just take a hammer and I'll bend this guy out of the way, and then I just get underneath that rubber, let it heat in the sun, and that glue and everything kind of gets hot, and just kind of break through there. Same thing across the top, the other side, and then I'll push it forward, and then it'll break, and I'll set it aside. And whenever I'm scrapping the car, I put it back in, And that way I don't have to worry about disposing of it at all. And then I'll just take this and chisel around the rest of that. The back window, again, there's no good way to do it. There's no gel in it, just a hammer through the center. And then I'll tap in all the loose glass, wear gloves and eye protection, of course. You don't want any small shards or anything in your eyes. And then I'll just go around the edge with this. Same idea. So got the tarps down to catch all the excess, doing it at the edge of our property. It is glass removal time. It's an hour of pure misery, but got to do it. So here we go, and then we'll get to some final touches. So just a quick little update as we're back inside, and we just welded with our, I'm telling you, Harbor Freight titanium MIG welder. Pretty efficient welding wise, even for an amateur like me. And I thought the price was absolutely right. I think I got it for 120 on sale. I think it's originally like 180 maybe. But got our bar in, and again, not the best of welds, but getting a little bit better and certainly well enough. So that is in. We'll pull the wires in from the back. That's really the only thing left inside other than popping the airbags out, which hopefully is pretty straightforward. The last thing before we get to our paint job, and then just a couple things like take the hubcaps out, and I should say, got to drop the tank too. We're gonna do that. So we'll drop the tank, cut the lines probably about right where the seat is underneath the car. Again, careful not to cut the brake lines, which run with the gas lines. And then I'll run my high pressure fuel lines and fuel clamps into right here with my derby tank, which is right there. And then battery box, of course, which I have sitting right up there with my sign. We'll bolt here, so that's the last of the inside. Probably won't put that on film, so that's what we'll do there. So up front, again, we're gonna take the bumper off, just unbolt it. And even though I found these bumpers to be more tougher than the standard kind of aluminum cheap front, not really cheap, but they're designed to impact, kind of collapse. These are a little bit stiffer, I found, but we have a Caravan bumper, which again are stock, so you can put them on a derby car for a stock class, at least in this area and pretty much every area I know of. And we're gonna weld it onto there, so we've got a little bit more solidified up front. We're gonna hopefully do a better weld than we did earlier with our Cobalt, which didn't hold for the entire derby. So just a quick look up front, we just cut down our bumper mounts there so we could get a decent, again, I'm not planning on going nose to nose with anyone, but a little bit better. I got the speed and the heat better, I think, this time. Not planning on going nose to nose, even though we've got the bumper to do it, but more of a defensive tactic, but a solid opportunity there, especially if I can get a shot in somebody's wheel or something like that. So better with the weld, but yeah, you can still see it's kind of still bouncing around some on me, getting that heat and speed. A little bit tricky, but she's on there. I would say pretty solid. Again, got a good opportunity to defend ourselves, at least better than the stock ones. So, and here we are with I would say the second most unpleasant thing compared to glass is number one, removing the glass of the front and back window and cleaning up the mess, not to mention getting everything on you. But this is the second most tricky, not really super difficult, but just kind of a process. So I put the jack under the center, and I have this one here just to balance it out so that the fuel didn't run out of the main liners. It's got about a half a tank or so in it. But just unbolt, or I just cut, just carefully, that you don't cut something you don't want to cut. And then I use the stock wiring, which again, right on top is where the fuel cell is. So I'm gonna pull this out, I'm gonna cut around it, and I'm gonna put that in my derby tank, so I don't wanna cut any of the wiring. And I try to be careful. You can see the lines are running up in there. That hanging down there is the main plug, which I'll show. Get out there. Again, if you don't know, usually runs right under the middle of the seat right there. So I will reuse this. Got a ground there, just get a ground, got a couple grounds back here as well. So probably what I'll do is right where it's at, the fuel lines are clean all the way up until there, and that's so far in front of the rear wheels, that's not gonna be an issue at all. So I'll probably hook in right there with my fuel lines, which are sitting right there. Again, make sure you get high test, or high pressure rather, fuel lines and clamps. And I'll attach there and run up through. I'll pop this out and run up through there, put like some rubber, maybe a little bit of spray foam around it as well, just so it's not like right up against the sheet metal there of the car that could be more sharp. And my derby tank will sit right there. So that is it. Again, I use a jack, kind of a simple process. We'll drag her out and cut it out and get the tank taken care of. So there we have it, drug out, and we have our fuel cell unbolted, even though there's a lot of surface rust on it, but just carefully unbolted it and got it out, just setting it there for now. Again, I'm gonna reuse that in my derby tank. So now first I'm gonna drain the fuel that's in there, about a half a tank, not quite a half tank, a little more, a quarter tank. Drain that fuel out so I can reuse it. And again, as expensive as gas is, you save your fuel. This is kind of a cool contraption here. So you just stick it in there and shake it and it'll start flowing right into the gas jug. Works phenomenally. Shout out to the kids' pap. He got that for me for Christmas. So what I'm gonna do after that is, here is the size of the top of my derby tank, and as you'll see, a little bit of not an issue, but a little bit of an adjustment. So not a problem here. I'll use the Sawzall there and I'll trace with just a marker the circle, and then I'll just cut it out after I drain the fuel. But you see how this one, these are right where it typically bolts down. Get my camera back up there. So probably gonna do similar to what I did last time. I'm not even gonna use that metal ring. I'll still cut out that size. You can see here, the one I used last time, I just clamped down with washers and bolts straight through that, and it still was secured and good, and no fuel leak even if I tipped over. So that's what we're gonna do now. Drain the fuel first, and then we'll carefully trace that, cut it out, and get it into our derby tank. So one final look at our process here before we wrap this kind of first look and build video up. We'll have a final look video where we have everything in place. But there again is our tank. We used the Sawzall to, after I traced the space that I needed. As you can see here in my derby tank, that's old enough. I think that's off a PT Cruiser I ran 3 years ago. I'm actually gonna keep that because I have a Cruiser that I might be able to use that with. We'll see. But that's the fuel cell out of this tank. Again, traced it, and then I carefully cut, just kind of cut into it, and then just kind of carefully rounded around to get it as close as possible. So what I'll do now is, we need this to sit on that. So I'll take this and I'll put it on top. I'll trace it, and I'll try to do the best I can to not cover any of these screw holes here that I need to bolt down through that. Because what I'll do is, I won't be able to put this plating over it, but once I have the holes cut, it'll slide down through there, and then I'll just use my nuts and washers to tighten it down. That should be able to just bolt back in here, and then I just hook up my fuel lines and the stock power cable, and we're ready to go. While it took me twice as long to do, there it is, a smaller tank in this Hyundai Elantra, and the fuel cell is actually shorter, but the faceplate there, the top of it that I bolt through, it's kind of not quite big enough to just run with my bolts, but too big to not, so I had to get that centerpiece back in there. So I had to drill and use the grinder and other things, but we got her on there, got her bolted in good. So we'll just drill through the floor and bolt it in there. Fuel lines again, right there they are, the high pressure lines. We'll hook up right under there, run up through there, put some spray foam, some padding around it, just so they don't get cut into it all, and then bolt down the battery box up front. So final moments, the only thing left after that, put the chain here with our 3/8 bolt up there and down there for our kind of safety guard, and then cut out the hood, and then hit her with a paint job. So that's it. She's ready to roll.